Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation Season 5, Episode 6. It's called The Game. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. So this is the fabled return of one Wesley Crusher. And
long feared.
and they put him into a Body Snatchers style episode.
Yep.
The Body Snatcher in particular is through a video game, effectively. It's like a headset. It's like a Google Glass style thing that beams into your eyeballs. And it's a really simple looking game.
As if I didn't need another reason to be afraid of Google Glass.
Yes. So this has probably technically happened before. But all I could think was, as this episode went on, is that this entire thing only happened because Riker was a horny devil, and
that's definitely happened before.
because the opening scene's him chasing around this alien lady, and she's like, he's got this like devious look in his eyes. He's
flirtatiously, we should add.
Yeah, flirtatiously,
not just chasing.
But she's stolen his communicator, and she's like, come and get it. And the way he's kind of like creeping past like the pillar and looking at her with this grin in his face, like, I'm going to get you. It's.
I actually thought the direction was really strong, like right from the start. Like this opening sequence, the way it was like moving around the pillars in the room, following them, it felt like it had style to it. And you know how every so often you get one of those episodes where you're just like, this has got a competent director at the helm.
What stuck out to me though is that when she put this game on him, obviously he's like, patient zero, as it were, who's going to then introduce it to everyone else on the ship when he gets back. But when she puts the game on him, there's this kind of like implied orgasm that kind of happens where he lets out this noise, and I went, oh, that was a bit raunchier than I was expecting, to the point where I wasn't sure if she was doing something to him while he was playing the game.
I can see where you're coming from, judging on his reaction.
Because obviously it was going to show you that if she was doing something. So the way it kind of like, it was in a close-up and then it went to the exterior, and he's like, oh, is there any more of that? And then she started climbing on top of him. I was like, was she like fondling him? Like, was she that excited about him playing this game that she's? Because obviously at this point I don't know what the plot of the episode is. I don't know it's going to be a Body Snatchers thing. So I'm just like, what is this? What's going on?
Yeah.
So, but obviously once he gets back to the ship, I was having, before we get into the real main plot and the Wesley stuff, so Riker has a moment where, given that Ashley Judd in this episode, who ends up being a love interest for Wesley, who's an active,
of course she does,
who's an active ensign on the ship, which makes me wonder the ages of like how early you can officially start working on the ship if she's love interest range with Wesley. But the reason why I'm bringing that up now is because Riker does get a little bit too flirtatious with her. There's a scene in engineering where Geordie's saying, oh, ensign blah blah, she's figured it out, and she comes over and she explains what she's doing, and at first he's fine, but the way he kind of smiles and says good work, ensign, at the end was like, alright Riker, come on.
Can we write this off as he's mind controlled at this point?
And he is technically mind controlled at this point, but and I was kind of like, okay, it's just Riker being Riker. But as the episode progressed and it became clear that she was going to be a love interest for Wesley, I'm like, wait a minute, wait, just she's supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, I get the impression she's meant to be 2 or 3 years older than Wesley.
That's fair.
Like, not like hugely, clearly, but
yeah,
just enough that she's graduated not that long ago.
Yes, I don't know. It's not so much that I'm saying that this slight flirtation is problematic. It's more just so that we opened the episode with him chasing an alien lady around for sexy games, and then he's already smelling at this much younger woman, and then 2 scenes later, he and Troy seduce an ice cream.
Yes. I don't know what's going on in this episode.
He walks into town forward, and there's this sort of long shot of him staring at something, and it pulls back, and it's Troy, like, slowly, erotically eating her chocolate fudge ice cream. And then he sits down, and she describes how orgasmic and how special the ice cream is, and how she has to savor it, and the seduction process.
There's a whole ritual to eating the ice cream, like. And the way she's talking about it is like this ice cream is turning her on.
It really does sound like it.
Like, that's the way, and she is not infected at this point.
No. So at this point in the episode, we've had that opening scene with Riker, we've had him flirt a little bit with a much younger woman, and then we've had this scene with Troy, and I'm like, what is this episode? Is this just Riker trying to screw everything that moves? Like, what is this episode? And then from here it sort of actually pivoted into, the game's starting to change people and make them addicted, and they're acting out of character and so on and so on.
It's body snatchers. Got it.
It's body snatchers.
There's a point not long after this we go, we're doing body snatchers. Cool.
Yeah, there was basically the way people were talking about the game was starting to make me feel like that, but once they trap Data and like turn him off, and then it becomes clear the reason for that is because the game wouldn't work on him, so they just have to take him out of the equation, and it becomes them trying to just initiate more and more people, Crusher, obviously Geordi eventually, everyone eventually, because there's a couple of scenes in this where it's almost frustrating that it's obvious that someone's already been turned. When Wesley goes to see Picard, and it's like, we know as soon as Wesley walks out, Picard's going to pull out the game and start, show us that he's already been taken.
Or the bit later on where he's talking to Robin as if she's not obviously flipped.
Yeah, I'll excuse that one a little bit just because she's has one ally the whole time as they're discovering it. So they're going to do a dramatic beat where they've separated for a little bit and then she's going to have turned. Like, it's just...
Yeah.
Like, they're going to do that, and I think that's fine, but...
It's not that they do it, that's my problem. I don't know, it's not that much of a problem. It's more just she's immediately clearly talking in the other voice, and he just doesn't even notice.
Yes.
He's completely oblivious. That's my problem.
I'd make fun of him, but he is technically the one who saves the day in this episode.
Is he, or is Data?
Well, yeah, but he figured out how to turn Data back on, which was that. If he hadn't done that, then Data wouldn't be... yes, Data's the one who comes in and, like, erases the mind wiping or the mind control stuff.
Yeah, I know.
But, Wesley's the one who figures it out and turns it back on.
And it's annoyingly not a bad episode.
It's not a bad episode. I think it's kind of a fun episode. It's a bit cliched and tropey in places with the body snatcher stuff, because it just...
The thing with body snatchers is it's body snatchers. You've seen it 1,000 times. But more often than not, it's still fun.
There's only so many new spins you can do on it. I think the key to body snatchers is that it usually lets a character who's not one of the main get a spotlight, because they'll be the one, in a TV show that is, because they can be the ones who can be the one person who's not been taken over, who can rebel against, because even the captain, the most trustworthy power figure on the show, on the ship, he's been taken over. So it's like, oh shit, we're really in the deep end now because it's just me. I have to solve this on my own. I'm willing to go on record and say this is the best Wesley Crusher episode. I could see it. Do you think this is because he's just older now, so it comes off as less forced?
Perhaps, but I still think the worst parts of the episode are him. A lot of the times, and I don't mean that against him as an actor or anything. Just like the love interest stuff is really not great.
The love interest stuff's okay. I think his scenes with his mother, like when she's trying to get him to play the game, but he's like, I'm going on my date. So sometimes their chemistry is a bit weird. For a mother-son.
It is, but then I think the rest of the episode around him is good enough and fun enough that it drags up his plot, so to speak. Whereas compared to a lot of his other episodes that we've had in the past that revolve around him and he's the savior, and they were kind of terrible.
Yeah, I do have fun with the others chasing him around though. See, once they just start chasing him and crawling in the tunnels. I laughed
when Worf just popped out in the vents.
Yeah, and they're in the vents and they're chasing them, and it's an actual thing to get, and they do get him. He's being brainwashed just as when Data comes in at the end, so they do eventually grab him. But
they're like Clockwork Orange in him. Yeah.
So, and the idea that, Picard and all of them would come after Wesley does make it feel like it has a bit more weight. It's this is selling the idea of the body snatchers, because we're seeing all these figures who would never harm each other, never mind Wesley, come after him. So, the body snatchers premise works. The love interest stuff, well, it's not great. I don't think it's offensively bad either. This show has had far much worse romance.
It has. It is far from the worst. It's just mundane and fine.
Yes. But definitely the show's had much worse.
It doesn't help that she's a lot more likable than he is. She's got a lot more charisma. Just,
You telling me Ashley Judd has more charisma than Will Wheaton? No offense, Mr. Wheaton, but
at least when they were this age, maybe these days Will Wheaton is grown into a very charismatic man. I don't know. But at this point, she's it feels unbalanced.
Well, hey, that's what it is. So that stuff's good. There are some little touches in the episode. They give Wesley like a surprise birthday-esque kind of. It's not his birthday, but when he comes back to the ship, they sort of pretend that they're too busy for him, and then give him a surprise. Jump out, which Data is struggling to understand. He's like, "Was the deception satisfying?" Like he's trying to understand.
Did it work on you? He's like, "Yeah," and this is a good thing. Yeah.
He's trying to get his head around it.
And everyone laughs at something, and Data's like a few seconds behind and just puts on his laugh. Now,
admittedly, I do think the thematic thing that this scene that I'm about to mention, or what it sets up, does feel a little bit forced, when that's Picard telling the story of, carving the initials into the tree of some girl that he was in love with when he was in the academy. However, I did enjoy a lot of this scene, though. Particularly Wesley kind of teasing him with because he's like, "Oh, he's still teaching there. Did he have anything to say about me?" And Wesley's like, "Oh, I didn't remember you." And the look on Picard's face is actually really good. Like, it's a really funny little moment.
I did like, and I was like, "Who's AF?" And he's like, "AF. Oh, I don't know what that means." And he's like, "You carved it into a tree." He's like, "Oh, that AF."
Yes.
Yeah. Again, it's a lot of Patrick Stewart can act. It's just the way he flips in the moment. It's kind of great to watch.
I think what's interesting about the pacing of this episode is that I really felt in the first 10 minutes that it was bouncing around all of the main cast quite equally, which you tend to focus on a few key characters per episode. Mm-hmm. And I felt in this one it was really bouncing around everyone, and I guess that's because they're all going to turn, so they want to sort of set a baseline for how they all feel.
I think the purpose beyond that as well is they want to make it feel big, because if you've got we're bouncing around everyone, it's like, there's a wide amount of people here, a big cast that you're playing with, that when they all turn, it feels like there's a lot. Whereas if you'd only focused on a couple, it feels inherently smaller, even though we know they're all there.
I also wonder if it's an attempt to make Wesley's return feel like a bit more special, that everyone cares enough to be involved, because they're all at this sort of little party welcome scene, but like it intentionally goes around with him like talking to Data, and like some of the others interact with him and stuff. So Data is willing to teach him some dancing, and Wesley's like, "You know what, I'm good. He doesn't say that, obviously. He pretends that he'll be interested later.
Yeah. Probably the right course of action there for once, Wesley.
I would imagine so. So yeah, it's kind of a fun one. It's interesting that we had this and Disaster back to back, and they're both just kind of not super important or meaningful episodes, but they're both just kind of fun.
Specific concepts as well.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, no, this is that thing, and this one's this, and it's like, and they just kind of commit to it full ball and go, that's what we're doing this time, which I can appreciate, because like I say, it's maybe not the deepest, strongest episodes of Trek, but because they commit to the theme and they play with the tropes of what that is, it's hard for it to be bad.
Yeah, I guess the only slight contrivance in it is just that Wesley has to just be weird enough to not want to try the game until he's hooked up to a device to analyze it. Like that was, and I would buy it more maybe if he was seeing people be too addicted to it before he tried it. But I don't know if at that point in the episode they'd seen enough to really think, oh, there's no harm in putting it on and giving it a whirl.
Do you know what I think would have sold it? For me, at least, because I was thinking this at the time, is we're seeing people use it a lot in like 10 Forward and whatever. It's like, yeah, but they're on their off time. They can do what they want there. Everyone who's at their job at this point of the episode is still functioning perfectly fine, at least seemingly. They're getting on with their jobs, they're doing it, they're not distracted by the game.
They're keeping
not
up
until a little bit later.
Yeah, they're keeping up the pretense, even if they're already taken.
Right, but there's a point where once they know, and they know they're running through. Wes is in the in the turbo lift, and everyone's just completely addicted and just on it 24/7. Right, there is no getting off it. I feel like if we'd seen a bit more of that with people just walking around while on duty, then Wesley would maybe have more reason to be worried.
Yeah, no, if we'd seen a little bit more of that, for sure, it would have made complete sense. As it is, It's just a little bit of a jump that he just has to, like, I'm not going to put that on until I've analysed it. I want to know more about it before I try it. Because ultimately it's just a game, so what like...
And it's one thing, him doing that, because I'm like, I can maybe buy that Wesley's a weird enough bastard to do that. But, we've got a relatively new character that we're establishing here that, she was in, like, the background of an episode at one point. For all intents and purposes, she is new here, and she's just happy to go along with that. It's like, yeah, this is a perfectly normal thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose that ties into their bonding, because they're both nerdy weirdos.
It does, but that still would have worked, again, if it felt like there was a bit more threat to it at this point, that, it's still bonding over shared adversity.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
It's a fun one.
It is.
I don't like it as much as Disaster, I don't think. I think Disaster, maybe because it gave us some good moments with multiple characters, as opposed to this, which, does hone in more on Wesley and his kind of hero's journey. But to its credit, it did not... I didn't feel annoyed by it. I was never feeling like, oh, we're giving Wesley all these big scenes or anything. It was fine in most of his scenes. It was alright. Yeah,
no, it was pretty solid, and I think these two make a really nice, like, back-to-back couple episodes, just as a just a nice little palate cleanser for Trek, almost.
Yeah, before we get into some deeper stuff. Obviously, eventually the alien, woman who infected Riker in the first place, like, she's falling on a ship behind. Picard's going to hand over the ship to her, basically, and they're going to, like, send Wesley back to infect, the Academy. They're going to send Riker to another ship with Klingons to infect all the Klingons. Like, this is going to be a sprawling thing. But of course, once they all snapped out of it, Picard just says, "Yeah, now we've got you, locked on. You're under arrest. This is over."
Yeah. Prison, basically. Off you go.
Yes. So I just wanted to mention that she does appear again. It's not just like the perpetrator behind it all just fades in with no reason. She clearly wanted to, like, dominate and take over the galaxy, but hey ho, that is the game. So next time we have part 1 of a 2-parter. So
in the middle of a season. Yeah.
Interesting. Unification 1, with the following episode obviously being called Unification 2. So here's the description on IMDb. Very short sentence, this. Picard and Data follow Spock into Romulan space on a dangerous mission.
Oh, we at that point.
We're doing big things next episode.
Okay.
We're doing big...
a minute ago when you said, we'll get back into the heavy stuff, and I said, hopefully. Had you already glimpsed...
No, I had
no,
not.
Okay.
No.
then yeah, we definitely are.
Yes. What's funny is even if it just said, if it's two-parters are special in this show. They make a big deal of them, and they're usually because of important stuff is happening. So even if it just said they're doing something with the Romulans, and I'd be like, oh, two-parter with the Romulans, this might be some big, mythology-altering stuff. But name-dropping Spock in there? Come on.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
All right. I'm down.
Do you know what? I'm just going to double-check they're not playing as dirty. I'm going to check. Come on. Yeah, Nimoy's in the cast, yeah.
I was going to say, I know there was an episode he's in, so...
I suspect it's probably 2.
The only loophole would have been in part 2 only.
Yes.
Maybe, like, they really wanted to get those ratings up.
I suspect it'll be in both parts.
I do as well.
But, no, that's neat. I mean, this episode... Yeah, this would have been after... Yeah, the last original... crew movie, yeah, because that was like 91. So this will be a couple of years after that. So this will be obviously not his last appearance as Spock, because he came back in the J.J. Abrams movies and stuff. But of the era, kind of his last in that way, which is interesting.
Yeah,
so that's
that is
cool.
Interesting.
Huh. Cool. All right, we got imagine pulling out the big original series like guest star this late in the game. This is like, we're so far into this show, and now they're like, oh, by the way, we're doing a Spock 2-part.
So I think it hits a lot harder now than the ones that we had at the very start. Because there it feels like you're just trying to show that you're a legitimate Trek show.
Yeah, you try to like use it to build credibility, whereas now this show has earned its own credibility. So now it's exciting to have our characters interact with those old characters in some way. Which I mean is also partly the appeal of why they did Generations as the first movie when they get to it. But I suspect this may be better than Generations because I don't remember Generations being particularly good. So
do I not get to look forward to Generations?
I wouldn't. First Contact was a good solid movie. That's after that. So there's light right after it. But yeah, Unification 1.
I'll suffer for the art.
That's what's coming next time. So let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. Do like and subscribe and hit that bell for notifications on YouTube. All those things really do help with YouTube popularity and growth and numbers and all that, so please do. You can also support us financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month, so please go and have a look and see if you're interested in that and get some bonuses and help keep all the content coming. And of course, do check out the MailFuzz Movies YouTube channel where the movie podcasts have went to live, including the sci-fi movie podcast, The Atomic Cinema Experiment, which might be relevant to your interests if you're watching two nerds talk about old episodes of Star Trek. So thank you very much once again for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, and I guess in the case of this episode, Wesley Crusher actually was kind of in complete control of the ladies.
Oh, that's a horrible thought.